Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, and welcome to another episode of Live Free TV. I'm the executive director of the American Constitutional Rights Union, and you can follow us at theacru.org. That's theacru.org. And we have many events that are upcoming, and so we hope to see you at some of these events in Georgia, Florida, Utah, Arizona as well, and Nevada. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So like us and share our work with others. But let's talk about the thing that I'm sure is on everyone's mind. You know, I can remember being a young boy, and even to this day, the shock in my home. We were in the same neighborhood that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. grew up in when we heard that he was shot. I think a lot of us can remember even when, we were sitting around looking at the 1972 Munich Olympics and knowing what happened there. I mean, I was too young to know about the Kennedy assassination, but all of these incredible events. But this past Saturday, I had been out there in the swimming pool with my little grandson, Joe, and, we come in, get cleaned up and everything. And I'm sitting there looking at Tom and Jerry cartoons with my little grandson. And then my wife, Angela, comes in and says, they shot him. And of course, I'm thinking, they shot who? She said, they shot Trump, Alan. And in the military, Joe, they always teach you that, the first report is, lots of times wrong. Wait till you get some follow-up reporting and understand when you get some more facts coming in. Right. And so at first I was like, this can't be. But then I turned over to the television, went into the living room with her, and I saw that clip. I saw the former president, number 45, standing there, presidential candidate, nominee of the Republican Party, giving a speech. And the next thing you know, he reaches up to his hand, to his head, and he goes down. And then you hear those subsequent shots. Where were you, Joe, when this happened on this past Saturday?
I wasn't doing anything. I was laying around, bumming around. I was taking it easy, relaxing. Same thing as you, but just all by my lonely. And somebody called me, and suddenly I started getting all these emails and texts, and I said, "What the heck?" And I went and checked it out, and that's what had happened.
It's amazing to me when you sit back and think, because we've gotten so used to these Trump rallies that sometimes we'll tune in, sometimes we won't, but it's a big deal for people. And of course, I'm sure it was a big deal for the folks there in Butler, Pennsylvania. But some of those attendees, who would have ever thought the retired firefighting chief who lost his life shielding his wife and daughters, the two other individuals that were shot, who would have ever thought that they were just going out to exercise their First Amendment rights, their freedom of speech, their freedom of expression, their freedom of political association. And then we would have this horrific event, which we had not seen for some 4 decades here in the United States of America. Someone at that position being engaged and being shot. And there is no way that you can't say that it wasn't an assassination attempt. And it was kind of funny when, I listened to some of the mainstream media outlets. Well, it could have been shards of glass. Teleprompter wasn't shattered. Well, some people call it, staged, and it was a fake because it just sounded like firecrackers. Weren't firecrackers.
Oh, maybe he fell.
Yeah.
President Trump fell.
But there were some outlets that said as he fell, he hit his head and all this type of stuff. And then all of a sudden you see that iconic moment, that moment when he kind of pushes people back. And my wife was laughing because she said, let me get my shoes on. The man still wanted to show his dignity, even in that type of moment. Now, who after being shot says, let me get my shoes back on? But that's the type of person that we're talking about. And in that moment, for him to not think about, get me to safety, I've been shot, his thought was, I've got to encourage people. I got to show courage to people. I've got to show my resolve, my resilience to inspire them. And of course, the people on the left said, well, those are the right words to say for him to pump his fist and say, fight. Yeah, it was. Because I can tell you, having been on a battlefield, if I was a commander, that gotten shot on the battlefield, I'm not going to turn around and, my troops see me crying and screaming. I'm going to say, fight, continue to fight. You know what your orders are. You know what your mission is. You know what your objective is. That's what President Trump was trying to say to us. Then in this moment, do not lose. Do not become despair. Do not succumb to fear, but embolden yourselves to continue this fight, continue the mission. As we say in the military, Charlie Mike, continue the mission. But what was so interesting, Joe, is when you look at the video that was taken by just ongoers that actually showed this person getting into a position up on a rooftop. Show that little video.
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there, see him? He's laying down. You see him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And so I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a Senate.
What's happening?
And to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look. There he is.
Easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people. Criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here.
Right on the roof.
It's much tougher than it happens.
You went right on the roof.
He's on the roof. Now, understand this. When you see that photo of the counter snipers that were up there on the rooftop, the whole purpose of having a counter sniper on an elevated position is to deny any other person, the enemy, the adversary, to be able to get an elevated position of vantage. Now, the position that this shooter got into was within 150 feet, direct line of sight to a former president and a presidential candidate nominee. Now, when I looked at that picture, a lot of people saying, well, it was Secret Service counter snipers. But, on the back of those individuals on the roof said police. And that leads me to believe that they were local police officers. But the bottom line is this. Why was there no coverage? Why was there no one making sure that you denied every single elevated position that had a vantage point onto that venue? I mean, you could have done it by drones or something. But when you have civilians that are saying, I see him, he's on the roof, this guy is crawling into a position. And furthermore, we hear reports that there was a police officer that went up there and saw the individual, but didn't engage him. There are more questions about this than answers. And the fact that the Secret Service has not really come forward and held consistent press conferences. As a matter of fact, I was watching one press conference. They said, we're not here to talk about what happened in Pennsylvania. We're only going to talk about security protocols in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the RNC convention. I think that the American people want to know what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. Don't you, Joe?
Yeah, that's strange, wasn't it? We're not here to talk about it? Really?
Yeah. Well, it's incredibly strange. And again, go back to the picture of those individuals up on the rooftop, the counter snipers. Now, let me walk you through something. Those gentlemen that were up there on that rooftop had gotten in position. They had developed what is called a range card or sector sketch. They had done their windage computations. They had done their target reference points. I mean, they understood all the different distances, and they had their, shooting chart so that they would be able to engage any target in their sector that they were supposed to be covering. So if you're up there and you have your eyes down on that, in that site, you're panning. You're constantly looking. You're constantly searching. You're not up there drinking Gatorade. You're not up there, chilling out and getting a good suntan. You're looking for potential targets to engage. How can it be that they never saw a person crawling on a rooftop 150 yards away? And let me put this in perspective. In the United States military, most of our recruits at basic training, they train engaging targets out to 300 yards. This is not some, high-speed born supremacy sniper, event. This person was within 150 yards. I mean, I go to the rifle range still to this day. I'm 63. I engage targets at 100 to 200 yards. I could have made that shot with a hard sight. And I think those of you all that shoot rifles know what I'm talking about. You either have a hard sight, which are the basic sights that come with a rifle that you have zeroed in. You can have a red dot, or you can have a scope. Now, I have not heard back what type of, targeting systems that this shooter had on his AR. But if someone goes to the painstakingly obvious of during daylight climbing up completely in the open, crawling, I would tend to believe that person is a little bit better of a marksman than what we saw. There's so much of this that just does not make sense. And furthermore, if you are doing what you're supposed to do, you're scanning and you're looking and boop, you see this and you call and you confirm that this is not a friendly on this rooftop, and you should know that you don't have friendlies on the rooftop, then you immediately engage. Why was this person not engaged until after they got off, 6 to 8 rounds? It's just unconscionable to me, some of the things that were there, that we saw, that we experienced. I mean, President Trump, think about it. Here's your ear. Here's your temple. That's how close it was to us having a discussion this week of the assassination of a former president, as opposed to a former president losing the upper part of his ear. I don't think that we should take this lightly. And I think that someone has to be held accountable. I know that the Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas came out and did part of the White House press conference because the Secret Service falls under him. I didn't get any reassuring information. I didn't get any confirmation that anyone's going to be held accountable. And the Oversight Committee in Congress is going to, do their normal thing, have someone there, blah, 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 talk about it. They'll be covered on C-SPAN and we'll see it. But in the end, who's held accountable? Let's look at this clip from ABC Australia.
We do know he left school only 2 years ago. He was only 20 years old. There have been reports today across multiple US media outlets from his former classmates saying he was a loner at school. He was heavily bullied at school. He'd often turn up dressed up in hunting gear and was mocked because of that. We do know that he was a registered Republican. There are reports that he donated an albeit very small amount of money to a progressive political group a couple of years ago. But beyond that, not much at all, and that is the subject of furious investigations as we go to air.
Michael, what about Trump's reaction to this? I mean, after he was shot in the ear, there was that moment he had ducked quickly. That will become a powerful image as he turned around to quickly just mouth something to the crowd.
It will be the most enduring image, it's fair to say right now, of this presidential campaign and bridge pretty much one of the most enduring political images for decades. We are already seeing members of former President Trump's team weaponising this for political purposes, including his 2 sons, posting that picture and referring to their father as a fighter. And it will be used, and already we're hearing from Republican strategists, used potentially by Donald Trump, especially as early as this week when he attends the National Convention in Wisconsin to portray himself as strong and, as the Republicans are arguing, President Biden as weak and feeble.
They're going to use it to weaponize. There's no weaponization there. Every single one of us saw what happened. We saw someone that responded with courage instead of cowering away. But yet that's seemingly how the left wants to portray everything. I mean, him pumping his fist. Oh, that wasn't nice. Him saying fight. Oh, that wasn't nice. Now he's weaponizing this. It's very evident. And let me tell you something, Joe. I think you should use that image.
Yeah.
You
Him
should
getting
use
shot.
that.
That wasn't nice.
You should use that image to send it to Xi Jinping. You should use that image to send it to Vladimir Putin, to the rulers and the mullahs and the ayatollahs in Iran, to North Korea, to the Islamic terrorists. That's the image of America.
I think you're going to see that image on a lot of T-shirts coming up. I'm telling you, that is going to inspire an awful lot of people to continue to fight.
Yeah, it is. And again, it is about the mission of restoring our constitutional republic, the mission of restoring the rule of law. Now, here's the real thing that I think that the left finds themselves in an incredible conundrum. Can they keep themselves from calling him Hitler, a Nazi? I've already seen reports where, they're calling his vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, just another authoritarian, unexperienced, another threat to democracy. They continue to go back to this threat to democracy thing. I don't think that they can help themselves. I think that they will continue to use the exact same language, which all of a sudden Joe Biden says we have to temper and tamper down. But yet he was the guy a few days prior to the shooting said that we got to put Trump in the bullseye.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if someone on the right said we got to put Joe Biden in the bullseye? Oh, my God. Just imagine what they'd be talking about. Or the fact that you have, people in Congress like a Benny Thompson, who actually introduced legislation to strip President Trump of his Secret Service detail. I don't know if they can control themselves from their own vitriol. The fact that MSNBC took the precaution of not having Morning Joe, their number one program, they did not have it on Monday morning for fear of someone saying something goofy. That just shows that they don't trust themselves whatsoever. Van Jones on CNN the evening of the first day of the RNC when J.D. Vance is recognized as the vice presidential nominee, saying that he's a dangerous virus. I mean, basically comparing him to what, COVID? I don't think they can help themselves, Joe. I think that they will continue to use this vitriolic language because if they don't, they got to run on a record.
Yeah.
They got to talk about the economy. You think they're going to talk about the economy, Joe?
Not so much there. Not so much there, Colonel. No.
You think they're going to talk about gas prices and energy?
No, they won't talk about that. No.
They definitely are going to talk about foreign policy, how the world is a safer place now. I mean,
well, they're doing so much better. Maybe, probably not. No.
Yeah. Let's see. How about recruiting and retention in our military? That's going great. Our national security, isn't that fantastic?
I thought it was crappy. Is it fantastic? No.
Well, the border's secure. They keep telling us that.
Sure. So much good stuff to talk about, Colonel.
There's no crime on the streets. So what are they going to talk about if they can't talk about Trump and Vance and these same, threats to our freedoms, threat to democracy, all of this stuff that they make up when yet they're the ones that are the biggest threats to our representative democracy.
Yeah, I gotta get off here. I may cuss soon, so I want to get away before I do that. Yes.
Oh. But it's just amazing to me. So it's going to be very interesting going forward in this election cycle to see how the progressive socialist left, the Democrat Party, will speak on these issues that are affecting the American people, or they're going to continue. They just can't help themselves. They're going to continue to go down the same road. And never forget, we saw a leftist Bernie Sanders supporter drive and attempt to assassinate the Republican congressional baseball team. 2017, Steve Scalise, by the grace of God, he's alive.
Yeah.
And we had all this talk about tamping down the Reddit, whatever, didn't make a bit of difference. Donald Trump gets elected back in 2016. What happens on the day of his inauguration? Violence, rallies, cars being burned in Washington, D.C. Madonna comes out and says that she's thought of blowing up the White House. Johnny Depp has thought about killing the president. Snoop Dogg, the rapper, has a gun up to someone that looks like Donald Trump and pulls the trigger and says, bang. Kathy Griffin holds up a severed head, bloodied head of President Trump. New York they had some play supposed to be about Julius Caesar, except the guy looks like Trump and he's being stabbed. And Fareed Zakaria of CNN says, oh, how great that play was. I don't think they can control themselves because they have nothing else to talk about. But when you see Joe Biden sit down with Lester Holt of NBC, or when you saw him sit down on his little White House speech that he gave, Oval Office speech, he did not take any responsibility for this himself. I think we're going to get more of what they've already been doing. And the important thing about us here at the American Constitutional Rights Union, ACRU Action, we want to keep you better informed, better educated, so you can be better activated to go out there. And that's the whole purpose of Live Free TV, is to help you to think through these points of interest so that you can realize that we should not go down the path of a former president or presidential candidate nominee ever having to duck behind a podium because somehow someone got the opportunity to get on an elevated vantage point in line of sight and squeeze off rounds. It's not about the weapon, because as you saw, there were good guys that had weapons also that eliminated and neutralized that threat. It is about the person. It is about what incites people into that level of violence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Live Free TV.